Welcome to DISCflex certification.
If you haven't already done a personal DISCflex, I highly recommend that you do one. It's not necessary to get the knowledge right now. It just makes it a little bit more personal. If you have one, if you have your report, please get it and follow along as we go through this report for your certification. If you don't, we've also made available a sample report that you can flip through while you're listening to your certification videos. So what makes DISCflex different? Well, there's a couple of things. I told you that DISC started as a paper and pen model that everybody scored. Well, we digitized it. We made it an electronic version. It spits out a report literally in seconds, takes about 10 to 12 minutes to do, and gives you a profound amount of information. And just to let you know, we have over 1 million lines of code and over 500,000 sentences inside the report. Now, that's not what gets spit out. It gets spit out in about a 40 to 50 page report in the BBR and the business behaviors report. And the leadership report, of course, is much bigger. But the bottom line is that these sentences come in two ways. One is based on your DISC factors, the D, the I, the S, and the C, the high and the low. And we also have the ability, like no other report on the planet, where we take that combined pattern, maybe you're a DI or an SC, and amalgamate those components into the behavioral advice, the tips, the coaching points, the bewares, things you should be aware of in your behavior that might get you into a little bit of hot soup, for example, get you into a little bit of behavioral trouble. Those are all part and parcel of this report. But the bottom line is we want you to become a chameleon on a rainbow, where you have your blue hand up here and your tails may be red. And for each situation, you are able to adapt very, very, very quickly to the behaviors that would be ideal for that situation. And to understand what those behaviors are, recognize it, and kind of plug your behavior in and be able to flex who you naturally are into the situation so that you get the best results. And we're not telling you to change everything about you. That is not the goal here. We know that most behaviors are set by the time you're about 3 to 4 years old. Your behavioral preferences are set, and that's a combination of nurture and nature. You can change a little bit over a period of time, but it's way stressful to do that. And nor do we want you to be anything other than who you are. What we want is that you fit into situations properly with the right behaviors. We all have to change and adapt our behaviors to the things and the situations that we're facing. And that is what DISCflex is all about, being situationally, behaviorally appropriate to get the results that you need to get in that situation, and to help other people do that as well. So that's the first thing about DISC. Now, when you look at your report, the first thing you're going to see in the report, and where I want you to go now, is the summary and scores page. The summary and scores page is the first customized page in the DISC report. This is where your pattern is that I was talking about. This is your behavioral preferences. And you'll notice that there's a few components on this page, the summary page. First is a brief description about who you are or who your coachee is. The next thing you'll notice on the page is we have a bar graph, and the bar graph gives you the levels of the individual components, those 4 quadrant areas. And it's on a scale from 0 to 100. And you will read your score off of that, your D, I, S, and C scores. The next thing that you'll notice is the pie chart. The pie chart takes the bar graph and puts it into the whole human being, because we are one human being, and puts the bar chart all together as a holistic view of how much of a percentage of those preferences are in your overall circle of who you are. And those are really, really important pieces of the pie. of your behavioral pie, as it were. And that's where we do our behavioral flexing, pushing pieces of those pies up and down and flexing. And you have to understand, just like a circle, if you compress one area of that pie, the other one will flex in. So we'll talk about that in detail in a moment. So the first thing you're going to look at in that report is this page. Then we go into your stressors and motivators as well. So we're going to first go to that page because that's where everybody goes. They want to know what their scores are. So go and grab your scores so that the context of what we're going to talk about throughout this certification makes sense to you. The next thing we talk about is why did we retool and modernize DISC? When I started using it way back when in the paper pen version, we had not started DISCflex now. But every time I would get a report, I go, okay, I got my report. I know my scores. I've got my summary page. I know what it is. But now what? And that's where the flexing came in. We decided at DISCflex many, many, many years ago that we wanted a way to assist ourselves and other people in being able to flex those behaviors for the different results that we wanted to achieve, to be able to do some behavioral changing and modifying and teach people how to do that on the fly or for long-term morphing. We thought that that was super important. So with that in mind, what are you actually allowed to use it for? I mean, what is the end game here? It's great to do behavioral flexing for yourself, but we have to look at it in context of, for me, I was an executive coach or am an executive coach for many, many years. What exactly do we want to do with this? Well, there's only three things that you can adjudicate legally in a corporate or a not-for-profit setting, any work setting. The first one is performance. Is the person doing what they're supposed to do? Their tasks. Now, you can imagine that different types of people's different types of behaviorally adept people can go about a task completely different. Somebody would go, charge through it, a high D, just go very, very quickly and fast through the task. Somebody with a high S, a little bit more patient, would take a little bit more time. The task would still get done. So performance is not adjudicated by behavior, ideally. It is simply, did the task get done according to expectations? The next thing you can adjudicate is attendance. Now, kind of got tricky after the pandemic. Most people would be in the office or seeing clients. That was kind of the scope of it. Now we have flex work, remote work. Some people are never going back to the office. Some people are going and coming back into the office. And this attendance requirement is being where you're supposed to be in the time frame you're supposed to be there and attend to the functions of your job requirement within specific time frames and where you're supposed to be. So that's the second thing. So now we talked about performance. Now we've talked about attendance. The third thing, the last thing that you can adjudicate is behavior. You can actually require people to behave in certain fashions, and you can adjudicate that behavior according to expectations. You can. For example, in a meeting, you can tell people they can't scream at each other or bully each other. Well, that's easy, right? You can tell people that they should be calmer or listen more attentively. These are all behaviors. You can listen with your D, your I, your S, or your C behaviors. The bottom line is that these behaviors can be adjudicated. Now, by far, the one that gets people into trouble the most in a work setting, actually in any setting, is behavior. Is the behavior the expected behavior that is appropriate for that particular situation? And because situations change and things that you're facing in life change on a day-to-day basis in your work environment, You have to be able to flex those behaviors so that you are going to be adjudicated according to the behaviors that are expected at work. So that's the bottom line: performance, attendance, and behavior.